You walk into a crowded room, greet the table, and realize something unsettling. You are entirely transparent. Your jokes land in a vacuum, your words evaporate before they hit the air, and if you vanish tomorrow, nobody would pause for a breath. Yet, you pride yourself on being a good person. You accommodate others, you step back to keep the peace, and you stretch yourself thin to ensure everyone else is comfortable. So why is the net return on your emotional investment precisely zero? Why are you treated like background furniture while others command the room effortlessly? The illusion you've bought into is that kindness and self-erasure are the same thing. They aren't.
In the architecture of human perception, certain everyday habits act as a slow-acting solvent, dissolving your baseline respect piece by piece until you are viewed as an optional, infinitely pliable commodity. Let's dismantle the hidden psychological traps eroding your standing, starting with a reflex you probably perform 10 times a day without realizing it. The apology epidemic is the first trap. Someone bumps your shoulder in a crowded corridor, and your immediate instinct is to mutter, "I'm so sorry." You sit down at a restaurant. The server brings you the entirely wrong meal, and you say, "My apologies, no worries." You approach a colleague with a vital work question, beginning with, "I'm so sorry to bother you."
Why are you apologizing for occupying physical space? From a cognitive perspective, compulsive apologizing is rarely about politeness. It is a subconscious flight mechanism. It signals a deep-seated, internalized belief that your very existence is an inconvenience to others, a preemptive white flag waved to ward off hypothetical conflict. Here is the neurological reality. The human brain relies on behavioral patterns to assign social value. When you apologize for things that are not your fault, you feed your interlocutor's subconscious a steady diet of data. This person is fragile, submissive, and inherently at fault. People instinctively lose respect for anyone who treats their own innocence as a liability. The shift requires you to stop treating sorry as conversational filler. When a delay happens that isn't your fault, you invert the dynamic. Instead of cringing and apologizing for keeping someone waiting, you look them in the eye and say, "Thank you so much for your patience while I got here." Instantly, you shift from a position of defensive weakness to a position of poised appreciation.
The economics of over-availability is the second trap. You are physically exhausted after a 12-hour workday, staring blankly at your living room wall, when your phone lights up. A friend wants to grab coffee for no particular reason. You want to say no, but a sudden surge of guilt hits you. You drag your heavy limbs out the door anyway. We forget that basic economic principles govern human relationships just as strictly as they govern the open market. The law of supply and demand.
When a commodity is infinite, its value plummets to zero. When you are perpetually accessible, always saying yes, always clearing your schedule, always sacrificing your resources, you are broadcasting a dangerous message. My time, my energy, and my presence have no baseline cost. People do not build monuments to convenience. They take it for granted. When you say yes to everyone else at the expense of your own boundaries, you are effectively declaring war on your own peace of mind. The shift requires you to treat the word no like a muscle that requires heavy lifting to grow. You don't need a sprawling, defensive excuse. A clean, unyielding statement. "I can't make it tonight. I need to recharge." Does something extraordinary.
It introduces scarcity. And the moment people realize your time has a boundary, its perceived value skyrockets. The confessional trap of oversharing is the third trap. You meet someone new at a social gathering. Within 20 minutes, you've unpacked your deepest financial anxieties, your marital friction, your childhood insecurities, and the colleague who stabbed you in the back. You walk away thinking, what an authentic, transparent interaction. They walk away thinking something entirely different.
In modern psychology, radical transparency without earned trust is rarely interpreted as honesty. It is processed as emotional deregulation. It signals a lack of internal containment, a psychological sieve looking for anyone to hold its contents. Mystery is the lifeblood of psychological gravity. When you lay every card face up on the felt before the game has even begun, you strip away the natural curiosity that fuels human intrigue. Worse, you hand out blueprints of your vulnerabilities to people who may eventually use them as leverage when convenience demands it. The shift instructs you to cultivate a vault. Not every thought, struggle, or intention needs an audience.
When you learn to let silence sit comfortably and share your inner world only with those who have earned the key, you stop being an open book and start becoming a captivating presence. Emotional chasing is the fourth trap. You send a message. The read receipts glow bright blue. Minutes turn into hours, and silence is your only reply. Instead of letting it breathe, you follow up with a question mark, then a text asking if everything is okay. Someone begins pulling away from your life, adopting a cold, distant demeanor, and you respond by chasing harder, demanding explanations, over-explaining your worth, clinging to a connection that is actively dissolving. This is the ultimate dignity trap. Human relationships operate like a tennis rally. One stroke from them, one stroke from you. If you are sprinting across the entire court, hitting the ball, chasing it down, and hitting it again while the other person stands completely still, you aren't playing a game anymore. You are performing an emotional audition. Begging someone to value you is a psychological impossibility. Value cannot be extracted through coercion. The moment you chase someone who is turning their back, you signal absolute emotional starvation. The shift dictates that if someone walks toward the door, you open it wide for them.
A calm, dignified exit, unmarred by passive-aggressive texts or desperate inquiries, is the single most powerful statement of self-worth you can project. Your absence should carry more weight than your pursuit ever could. Weaponized mockery disguised as humor is the fifth trap. A friend throws a casual jab at your expense in the middle of a group conversation, targeting your clothing, your career, or your insecurities. Everyone laughs. You feel your chest tighten, but instead of addressing it, you force a tight smile and laugh along to avoid being labeled the sensitive one who can't take a joke. Let's call this what it actually is: hostility wrapped in wrapping paper.
This isn't light-hearted banter. It is a boundary-testing mechanism. People probe your tolerance to see how much disrespect you will swallow for the sake of social harmony. When you absorb the blow and laugh it off, your compliance is logged as a permanent license for them to repeat the behavior. The shift means you don't need to detonate the room with a screaming match. True authority requires surgical precision. A sustained, unblinking 5-second stare paired with a flat, cold delivery. That remark wasn't particularly funny. Let's leave it there.
instantly shifts the atmospheric pressure. It signals that your boundaries are electrified. Self-deprecating sabotage is the sixth trap. You say phrases like, "I've always been terrible with money. I'm just naturally clumsy and dense. And look at me. Who would ever take advice from someone like me?" You throw these lines out to break the ice, to show humility, or to beat critics to the punch. But your subconscious mind possesses a fatal biological flaw. It does not understand irony. To your deep neurobiology, a joke told at your own expense is processed as literal data. When you repeatedly script yourself as the punchline, you wire your self-image to match the script. Worse, you teach your social circle how to categorize you. People rarely argue with how you present yourself. If you market yourself as damaged goods, they will happily buy into the clearance sale pricing. The shift tells you to drop the self-sabotaging commentary. Humility is about knowing your worth and staying grounded. It is never about self-inflicted vandalism. You speak to yourself with the baseline level of respect you would demand from a stranger, because the world will rarely value a product that the manufacturer insists on trashing. The architecture of true standing concludes the psychological framework. True personal gravity has nothing to do with dominance, aggression, or arrogance. It is entirely about internal alignment. It is the quiet, unshakable recognition of your own baseline value. It is the willingness to let people misunderstand you, walk away from you, or disagree with you without ever trading your self-respect to keep them close. When you eliminate these 6 silent habits, you stop leaking your own power. And in return, a subtle, profound shift occurs. The room doesn't just listen, it adjusts to your presence.